Hi everybody, it's Miss Willard. What's up? So this is how to annotate. We're going to do it with the Magic of 15 Minutes article that you were assigned to read. So I want to put your attention up here. So this is basically a guide to annotating. First, you want to highlight or underline keywords, phrases, or important details. Next, you write questions or comments you have in the margins, so along the sides of the paper here. Third, use a star, asterisk, or other symbol to indicate 10 to 20 important statements. It's 10 to 20 important statements for a book, but really there's not entirely a guideline on that. If you think something's important, you should definitely put a star next to it. Okay? Next, you want to circle words you don't understand. So if you come across a word you don't know, or maybe an acronym you don't know, make sure you circle it so you can come back to it later. Use a check mark for when you understand. So if we were to read this first paragraph and it makes sense, we'll just put a little check mark by it. Next, you want to put some question marks around areas you don't understand. And finally, use exclamation points for something new, interesting, or exciting. So we will go ahead and start. So the magic of 15 minutes, daily reading practice and reading growth from Renaissance Learning Blog. A study of the reading practices of more than 9.9 million students over the 2015-2016 school year found that more than half of the students read less than 15 minutes per day on average. So I'm going to underline that. Found that more than half of the students read less than 15 minutes per day on average, because that seems pretty important to know. Okay? Fewer than 1 in 5 students averaged a half hour or more of reading per day, and fewer than 1 in 3 read between 15 and 29 minutes on a daily basis. Okay, so we kind of understood that people aren't reading enough is basically what that introduction paragraph is telling us. So here we are. The problem is that 15 minutes seems to be the magic number that which students start seeing substantial positive gains in reading achievement, yet less than half of our students are reading for that amount of time. So that's pretty important. I would say less than half of our students are reading for that amount of time. So we'll underline that. Okay, an analysis comparing the engaged reading time and reading scores of more than 2.2 million students found that students who read less than 5 minutes per day, I'll underline that too, students who read less than 5 minutes per day saw the lowest levels of growth, well below the national average. So that's pretty important to know, I think, because it tells us that it's a pretty big deal. It's the lowest levels of growth. So that's important to know. Here we go. Even students who read 5 to 14 minutes per day saw sluggish gains that were below the national average. So we'll put a check mark. Only students who read 15 minutes or more a day saw accelerated reading gains. That is, gains higher than the national average. And students who read just over a half hour to an hour per day saw the greatest gains of all. Makes sense? Okay. An analysis of more than 174,000 students program for International Student Assessment, PISA, let's mark that, scores revealed that connection between reading engagement and reading performance was moderately strong and meaningful in all 32 countries examined, including the United States. So, connection between reading engagement and reading performance was moderately strong and meaningful. On average, students who spent more time reading more diverse texts and saw reading as a valuable activity scored higher on the PISA's combined reading literacy scales. So since this is kind of long, we'll use brackets as a way to set that apart so we know that that's something important. We could also use a star here to accentuate that importance even more. So here we are. The study also found that a student's level of reading engagement was more highly correlated with their reading achievement than their socioeconomic status, gender, family structure, or time spent on homework. In fact, students with the lowest socioeconomic status background but high reading achievement engagement scored better than students with the highest socioeconomic background with low reading engagement. So here's another important part here. And I think we should put some exclamation points here. So let's read that again. In fact, students with the lowest socioeconomic background but high reading engagement scored better than students with the highest socioeconomic background but low reading engagement. The authors suggest that reading practice can play an important role in closing achievement gaps between different socioeconomic groups. Frequent, high-quality reading practice may help children compensate for and even overcome the challenges of being socially or economically disadvantaged, while a lack of reading practice may erase or potentially reverse the advantages of the more privileged background. In short, reading practice matters for kids from all walks of life. What is especially interesting about the NAEP results is that the correlation between reading frequency and reading scores was true for all age groups, and the score gaps increased across the years. Make sure you can still see that. Okay. Among 9-year-olds, there was only an 18-point difference between children who reported reading never or hardly ever and those who read almost every day. By age 13, the gap widened to 27 points. At age 17, it further increased by 30 points. So this is important because this is y'all's age group. You know, y'all are 13, 14 years old. You can see here, this relates to you. So, let's see, y'all are in 10th grade, so you're probably like 15, 16 years old. Something like that. Anyway, so here we are. This seems to run contrary to the commonly held wisdom that reading practice is most important when children are learning how to read, but less essential once fundamental reading skills have been acquired. Indeed, we might even hypothesize the opposite, that reading practice may grow more important as students move from grade to grade and encounter more challenging reading tasks. Until more research either confirms or disproves this possible explanation, it is nothing more than a guess, but an interesting one to consider nonetheless. However, it is clear that reading practice is decreasing among all age groups, and the most dramatic decreases among the very students who may need it the most. Okay, so now that we've kind of gone through, you want to take a look back, see what you starred, what you may have underlined, and that way you can take this information to write your answers to the questions posed for this article. So that's the basics of annotating. It's kind of a rough version of that. You can also do something similar to this on your computer. So if you don't have a printer, obviously you can't write on your article like this if you don't have a printer. But there is a way you can do that on Google. There'll be a separate video just to kind of go over the basics of how to do it in Google. But this will be the video that shows you, at least this whole article. So there you go, guys. Thanks.